Everyone. I'm hesitant to do this video because I feel like I'm probably driving you crazy with us reading Bruckner and Fisher's Why Is Death Bad and all my little charts and things. It's a difficult reading, and it's so easy to mischaracterize what they're saying. I'm not completely sure that I'm not doing that, but I was looking over the discussion board, which I got to say is really quite good level of discussion of this, especially considering the difficulty of absorbing this reading and trying to put all the pieces together. So I will be sending out a video next week reviewing the discussion board, in which there's really lots and lots of good work. But there are a couple things I just felt like maybe just to reinforce or clarify, especially for study purposes or writing your essay or final exam. A few things to put down about the asymmetry problem and about Bruckner and Fisher's conception of it and their solution to it. So we go back to the beginning. I think this is where we start with the asymmetry problem. The idea is that dotted line in the middle is life, during which we are conscious and living and experiencing goods, bads, indifference, but that life is finite. The bracket or line on the left that begins at his birth, and the bracket or line on the right is death. And like I said, the idea of the dotted line in the middle is that's life, that's experience, that's everything that we're familiar with, and the the time before we were born, obviously we didn't exist, and the time after we die, obviously we will not exist. And that, I think, is really that's the fundamental starting point. That's the Epicurean starting point. Again, later in this course, we will seriously begin to question that, right? Talking about immortality, talking about questions about life after death. But right now, this is the space that we're in. Human life is finite. It has a beginning, which is an absolute beginning. We didn't exist in any form before it. And it has an end. We will not exist in any form after it. Now, okay. This is looking more at Bruckner and Fisher's conception of it, right? It's important to see that they reject Nagel's dismissal of the asymmetry problem, Nagel's solution to it, you could say, and conceive of it this way, I believe, that the important thing to recognize in their solution is that prenatal non-existence on the left and posthumous non-existence on the right are both periods of deprivation of goods, possible goods. And this all rests on two claims. First, the more familiar claim on the right, that we all die at a certain time. And that if we didn't die at that time, we would have died at a later time. And the key thing is that we could have died later than we did. Therefore, we could have experienced more of life's goods. On the left, this is where they differ from Nagel, right? Because Nagel would agree that we could have lived longer. What he disagrees with is that we could have lived or we could have been born much earlier than we were. This is something that Bruckner and Fisher reject, right? They think that just as we could have lived longer and died later, we could have lived longer by being born earlier. And so if both of those are true, then our periods of non-existence, at least part of them, are deprivations of possible goods. If somebody dies at time t when they could have died at time t plus x, whatever, then they could have experienced more of life's goods, so they were deprived of those goods. If someone on the other side of the thing could have been born earlier, and so could have experienced more of life's goods, they were deprived because they weren't born earlier. This is the key part of their argument where they set it. This is the setting up of this is not their solution. This is their setting up of the asymmetry problem. And the key here is that both, for them, both prenatal and posthumous non-existence are periods where we're being deprived of goods. So what does that mean? They're both bads. But insofar as they are deprivations of goods, they're not, I feel bad, I'm made to suffer. They're bads because they are deprivations of goods. But also key here is something that they borrow from Nagel, that both of these deprivations or bads or the bads that occur to us in prenatal non-existence and posthumous non-existence are obviously both unexperienced bads. Right? They're bads like the bad that happens to Nagel's man with a traumatic brain injury. They're bads that happen to us without us experiencing them. We don't suffer because of them. They're true bads, right? So Bruckner and Fisher say, and they accept Nagel on that point. But they're unexperienced bads. This is important because what this means is that they claim we are temporally indifferent to unexperienced bads. That is, we don't have a preference for unexperienced bads to be in the future or the past. This differs from how we feel about experienced bads. The whole point of the person who wakes up and doesn't know whether they will have a painful operation or they have had it is meant to point up our temporal preference for our bads to be in the past. If it weren't true that unexperienced bads were different, then this would be a solution to the asymmetry problem, because if we go back, sorry. Sorry, this thing gets in the way. Because if we go back to this here, if this would seem to be a solution to the asymmetry problem, because these bads of prenatal non-existence are in the past. These bads of posthumous non-existence are in the future. The general fact that we prefer our bads to be in the past rather than the future would seem to solve the asymmetry problem, because what is the asymmetry problem? It's caring more about death than prenatal non-existence. It's caring more about the bads of death and the bads of prenatal non-existence, which would seem to go with our usual idea that it's rational to care more about bads in the future than the past. Right? So that would, on the face of it, would seem to be a solution. But this, that we are temporally indifferent to unexperienced bads, ruins that. That's why they don't characterize it that way. Their solution is not, well, we want our bads in the past, so of course we care. We care more about the bads in the future of death than the bads in the past of prenatal non-existence. If we're being consistent, they say, with the rest of life, where we are indifferent, temporally indifferent to unexperienced bads, that is, we don't care. They're equally bad whether in the past or the future. That is not a solution to the asymmetry problem, because it does not justify our caring more about the bads of death in the future. So if we're looking to solve the asymmetry problem, this is no help. This is why they focus on pleasures or goods, because we're not talking about unexperienced bads. We're basically saying, if we look here, if say we look to the right, we look towards the future, we know that if we die later, we will experience more goods, more pleasures. We know also, looking to the left, that if we had been born earlier, we would have experienced more goods, more pleasures. But we value pleasures more if they're in the future than in the past. It's not that we don't value past pleasures at all. We value them more if they are in the future. So it stands to reason that we value the pleasures that we look forward to more than the pleasures that we retrospectively look back upon. So we care more about the future experience pleasures that we will be deprived of by posthumous non-existence, that is death, than we do prenatal non-existence. That was a quick walkthrough. I don't know if it'll help. I don't know if I'm piling on, but this is my take, my basic take on the structure of their argument. I mean, if it helps to put things in place for you logically, that's great. If otherwise, sorry, I'm just adding more stuff.